All right, guys, it's Vac-Con John. Today we're going to take a close look at this Vac-Con SE9 combination truck. So this is a single engine combo truck and it has a fan vacuum system. Keep in mind, on any Vac-Con combo truck, you can run a single engine design or a dual engine design. You also have the choice of vacuum system between a fan vacuum system and a PD blower vacuum system. Like I said, this is a single engine fan and this is a compact truck. So this is a 9-yard debris tank with 1,000 gallons of water, and it has the Pro Reel. So we're gonna take a close look at all of this. Let's dive in. This truck's outfitted with the Pro Reel. So what does the Pro Reel give us as an operator? Well, the main thing is work area, convenience, and safety. So this Pro Reel articulates 180 degrees, just like any of our articulating reels at Vac-Con, but it also traverses the front bumper and moves side to side across that front bumper, giving you a total of 70 square feet out in front of the truck. Now, this is an 800-foot capacity of 1-inch hose. This truck is a 60 gallon per minute at 3,000 PSI water system with 3/4 inch hose on the hose reel. So you even get more capacity if you were to run 3/4 inch hose off the truck. Now, this reel is constructed of aluminum. The hose reel itself and the housing's all aluminum. So that sheds a ton of weight. If you were to compare this to a normal Vac-Con articulating reel, this is actually 500 pounds lighter than that other reel is. So what that allows us to do is gets rid of the outrigger leg underneath the reel. So we don't need that extra stabilization because we're using a rotary actuator for the articulation instead of a chain and sprocket drive. We're also using a planetary gear for that pay out and retrieve of the hose reel, so that way that's more accurate as well, and we don't have a chain and sprocket drive moving that reel to pay in and pay out. So you're getting much beefier drive systems for the articulation and the pay out and retrieve. Anytime we go with the Pro Reel, you're gonna get digital controls. Now, this control system moves all the way around so that you can clean lines from either side of the Pro Reel. That's the safety factor. So I can put myself in a position that makes sense at the front of the truck, and I can operate from the driver's side of the reel or the curb side of the reel. I'm just choosing the direction based off where I'm pivoting my control panel. It's all riding on a friction locking system. So anytime I stop it, it's gonna lock into place, but I can move it and it's just gonna be moving with the friction at the top of the reel. When I look at my display, I've got a 7-inch display up top. This is gonna give that operator the information that they need without getting into too much detail. You can scroll through and look through more detail if you're interested, but as an operator, I want this to be simplistic. So what am I reading on the screen itself? Water pressure's on the top right. I've got my digital footage counter underneath that. At the bottom right, I've got my hose reel max speed. So when I'm paying out and retrieving my hose, I can choose the max speed setting from my joystick on the left. So I can choose a 1% max speed, which is like a creep mode. I can choose 25%, 50, 75%, or 100% max speed, and this is proportional. So if I set it at 75%, I can go all the way out at 75, and I can retrieve it at 75, or I can play with that proportion and really figure out the exact speed that I want to move that reel. On the top left, I've got my vacuum stages. So you've got a 3-level vacuum stage system, and this is going to choose the power for each level. All you have to do is increase the vacuum level. This is going to shine green and light up as you're moving through your vacuum stages. Underneath that, you've got your digital debris tank level and your digital water level. So those are going to read out live to you at the front at the digital display. One of the coolest things about the digital display system is this Vac-Con image on the bottom left. This Vac-Con image is going to display if your transfer case is engaged or not. Now, this is a single engine truck with a Pro Reel. So we've got our water hydrostatic pump and our vacuum hydrostatic pump running off the transfer case. So I would need to engage that transfer case whether I'm running my water system or my vacuum system. All I need to do is press my T-case button. With one touch, that engages the transfer case. The beauty of running that with the Pro Reel is I can choose where I want to engage my transfer case. I can engage it from inside the cab, or I can engage it at the operator station out front. When I train operators, I want them to drive the truck inside the cab. Out front is where I want them to think and be an operator. So I would engage that transfer case in the first step of my process right here at the operator station before I get to work. That way when I'm in the cab, I don't have to go back and forth and figure out when I need to engage that transfer case. That covers the screen. On the right-hand side, I've got my lights. On the left-hand side, I've got a reset footage button and my transfer case button. Looking at your switch packs and your joysticks, you split this down the middle. You've got water on the left-hand side and vacuum on the right-hand side. So we know that this is for that hose payout and retrieve, but the water system's tied to it on the left, and then this joystick's for my boom. My vacuum's tied in above that. So each switch pack is separate. On the left-hand side switch pack, I've got my water pump on and off, and that would engage my water pump and tell that water to start moving. And I've got my jet hose on and off. So if I were to start cleaning a line, I would tell that water to start moving and then turn that jet hose on at the front reel. So there's an air actuated ball valve that's doing the work for you. Anytime you're jetting a line, you do not need to leave the operator station. On the right-hand side of the switch pack, we've got our water increase and decrease. So we can engage that water pump and stroke it to get different water pressures from increasing or decreasing. Then the middle switches here are just to move the hose reel. So we've got a reel in and reel out, which is going to be for articulation. And we've got a reel driver side and a reel curb side, which is going to be for traversing that reel side to side on that front bumper. So all of your hose reel controls and water controls are tied in right here at the switch pack. On the right-hand switch pack, this is for vacuum. So it's tied in with that boom joystick. I've got a work mode, which is going to bring my chassis RPMs up to 1,000. And then I've got my vacuum increase and decrease levels right next to it. So once I go into work mode, I can go through each level of vacuum, 1, 2, and 3, with my increase and decrease buttons. I've got my vacuum breaker switch, which gives me automatic seal to my vacuum. We'll get into this in more detail as we walk around the truck. But the main thing to understand at the operator station, if I'm at full vacuum, third stage of vacuum, and I get a rock suction down to the bottom of that boom, and I want to lift that out of the hole, stay at full vacuum, I hit my vacuum breaker button, it seals my vacuum, allows me to drop that rock, I bring it back over the hole, hit my vacuum breaker again, back to full vacuum. On the right-hand side of that switch pack, I've got a vacuum bypass and my chassis start-stop. Now this vacuum bypass is used because this is a single engine truck. If I wanted to raise my chassis RPMs to give my water system more power and I didn't want to vacuum, simple. I just hit my vacuum bypass button. That's gonna say, hey, I want my chassis RPMs to rise, but I don't need my vacuum to. So I can just bypass that vacuum system with the push of a button. Let's look at some of the small things that Vac-Con's thought about with the Pro Reel. So I'm gonna put this control system back into the stored position here and get it locked into place. So now that's tucked back behind the reel for when we drive and we put this reel in a stored place, it's in a good spot. But just some of these small things make a lot of sense to an operator and to anybody that runs any type of combination truck. We've got a floodlight that shines off the front of the truck because we know anytime there's a hose reel and a boom off the front end of a chassis, we want light, but there's gonna be some light that's impeded in the front of the truck. So we've given you an additional headlight, so to say, with a floodlight shining off the front. We also have a floodlight shining down off that manual level wind guide. So this level wind guide is gonna be used to reel that hose back onto the reel in an organized fashion. But we've got that light shining directly down where that manhole is to give you a good field of view when it's dark in the morning or dark at nighttime. Some other little things. A variable flow valve here. So like I said, we're running 60 gallons per minute at 3,000 PSI. 60 gallons per minute, still a lot of water running through at 60 seconds. So if I wanted to taper down my water usage and spend more time over top of that manhole or catch basin, I can reduce that flow and send some back to the tank so I'm not pushing so much water out. I've also got boat cleats on either side of the reel. I mentioned how we can operate from either side. It only makes sense to put a tie off for your hose guide or your tiger tail on either side of the truck too. You've got aluminum bogies that your hose reel will be able to put that hose through it. It's nice and sturdy and easy to access. And we also have a winter recirculation valve that's going to travel with the hose reel. So anytime you want a winter recirc, you would just unwind that hose, plug it into that valve that travels with the reel, and flip the switch in the cab, and we can winter recirc. Now we get a good look at this 10-foot telescopic boom. There's one thing that's a little bit different on this boom than your standard Vac-Con. So this is a 10-foot telescopic boom, and you get that 10 additional feet from this stored location, but they went with a 10-inch boom. So we've got our standard 8-inch fitting here that we put our 8-inch pipe on all the way up to that elbow. But once it reaches that elbow, it's 10 inches. So it goes 10-inch all the way back into that debris tank. Well, what's the benefit of this? The big benefit is if you do a lot of hydroexcavation or you have a lot of bricks and garbage in your storm lines that are larger rocks, those nice long rocks might fly up that boom, but if they take that turn at the elbow, there's no way of getting around it. They're gonna get clogged up in there. So that 10-inch, if it goes up the 8-inch, you got a really good chance it makes it all the way to the debris tank when you go with a 10-inch boom. As far as the chassis goes, it's always important to understand we're willing to put a Vac-Con body on any brand chassis. If you have a certain chassis that you love, you have a local dealer that you love working with, we can make it work. One benefit that we have is we always stock Freightliner and Western Star chassis in-house. That gives us a great lead time. This is a Freightliner 114 SD Plus. It is a single axle, but it's still that Cummins L9 370 horsepower. Gives us plenty of horsepower to run the water system, the vacuum system, and the hydraulic system, all off that single engine. But with that Freightliner 114 SD Plus, it's a little bit nicer than the old 114 SDs. You have the black leather interior, computerized dash, and we don't just build out a generalized truck. We do an air-ride cab, dual air-ride seats, power windows, power mirrors, heated mirrors, Bluetooth radio. You have a lot of the stuff that the operators and drivers really want. As far as customized option content goes, the easiest things to customize or configure on a new Vac-Con are going to be your lights, cameras, tool storage, and pipe storage. So you can light this thing up like a Christmas tree. You can go as basic as you want. It really depends on how much safety or traffic advisory you want and how much floodlights you need. Are you going out at night or are you working early in the morning? These guys went with strobes off the mirrors, 2 strobes off the debris tank, strobes around the body. They have floodlights off the boom, which are double floodlights. So they've got one floodlight set that's going to telescope out with the boom and one floodlight set that just travels around at the side of the truck. They also have floodlights off either side and floodlights off the back. And we looked at that floodlight that's right there at that reel showing you that work area in front of the truck. As far as the camera system goes, this is a pro reel. So we have that rear camera that comes with the system and that front camera that comes with the system for our sewer guidance system. So anytime we pull up, that front camera is going to show us the highlighted area that the pro reel can reach. As far as tool storage goes, this truck is decked out. Even though it's a compact package, we have 2 96-inch through toolboxes that go all the way to the other side. We also have a toolbox on either side of the truck, driver's side and curb, which is your standard midship box. We also have plenty of pipe storage on the truck. So you have a Lazy Susan pipe rack that is going to be driver's side with 5 racks. And we also have some J-hook style pipe racks that you can put on the back door or on the driver's side for even more additional storage. Along with the lights, cameras, tool storage, and pipe storage, you also get to choose your paint color and stripe color. So you can see they went with a red paint color and white stripe. So anytime you pick your stripe color, doesn't matter the color of the stripe, we always do it reflective. So you're gonna get the striping going down the side of the truck and the striping on the back door, which is reflective at nighttime or early in the morning. Water storage is always really important, but sometimes overlooked. We're using cross-link polyethylene water tanks, and we have 4 tanks below the frame of the truck. We've got 2 on this side, 2 on the other side, and we've got 1 small tank right above the frame against that debris tank. But why is this so important? Well, I've got 1,000 gallons of water on the truck, and at least 80% of my water is below the frame of the truck. These tanks come all the way up here in the frame, and that gives me a really low center of gravity. So when I fill up with 1,000 gallons of water, I don't have that tippy nature when I'm driving around the truck. It's gonna be nice and stable with that low center of gravity. Another really important piece is how we send that water, how are we pushing that water. We're using a triplex water pump. So that's gonna provide smooth, continuous flow and pressure at all times, whether it's out that front jet hose giving that nozzle smooth continuous flow and pressure, or out of our low pressure, our hydroexcavation or a lateral line. There's going to be no pulsation. It's going to give that nozzle or that handgun exactly what it needs and what we want to give it. Now, we've got multiple places that we're going to send water on the truck. We spent some time at that front jet hose. Nice thing about running lines, if you're jetting lines with that front jet hose, you're using an air actuated ball valve. So when you press jet hose on, that's all you need to do. You don't have to go through any procedures otherwise. Jet hose on, it's done. On any other place we're sending water on the truck, we would use one manifold, and that manifold is going to be responsible for sending water anywhere we need to send it. It's very easy because it's all in one location, labeled and easy to find. Well, where can we send water other than that front jet hose? Off to the side, we see a 50-foot low pressure reel, which is going to give you a 750 PSI. We've got a 50-foot reel for hydroexcavation. So this is going to give you the full pressure of the water pump. You're going to get all the way up to 3,000 PSI on this system. We also have a lateral line kit. So we've got 200 foot of smaller hose for those laterals. So these guys that run this truck, they're not only responsible for the mains, they're also going to go and hit some laterals every once in a while for smaller pipe. So they've got a system of smaller diameter hose and smaller nozzles that they can run through those small pipes. They would peel it off by hand, and then it winds back on this reel electronically. So we got low pressure, hydroexcavation, and the lateral here. We also had the debris tank flush out, and that's also plumbed in to this manifold here. So we've got a total of 5 places we can send water. Debris tank flush out's getting up to 3,000 PSI, lateral lines up to 3,000 PSI, hydroexcavation's up to 3,000 PSI, low pressure handgun's gonna be up to 750 PSI because we don't want high pressure out of the low pressure. We wanna be able to clean the truck off with something that's nice and safe. And then we've got our front jet hose that goes all the way up to 3,000 PSI. Anytime you go with a hydroexcavation package, you'll get that 50-foot reel, you'll get a 6-foot digging lance with a trigger on it for safety, but it also comes with a high pressure unloader. So this system here is meant to unload that flow and pressure when you let go of the trigger. So if you pull that trigger and you're getting 3,000 PSI, as soon as you let it go, that pressure and that flow is gone. So this is going to automatically dump that flow and pressure back to the water tanks every time you let go of the trigger. It's a very important piece of the puzzle when it comes to hydroexcavation. We also have air purge on this truck. So we talked about the winter recirculation, but we also need to have the ability to winterize the truck. So we utilize our chassis air tanks with a connection where we can plug it in and push that air through every place that holds water on the truck. That way we can get the truck completely dry through the winterization process. Anytime we're using the lateral kit, we would peel off that hose by hand. And this control box here has a speed setting and a button that reels that hose back onto the reel. So we can go from slow to fast, and I'd basically hold this hose out while pressing this button. It's gonna electronically reel that hose back onto my storage reel up here for our lateral kit. We also have a folding cone rack here, which hinges off the deck that makes it really easy to grab cones on and off. Up on the side of the debris tank on the curbside, we have our debris level indicator arrow. Now, this arrow is really important for our vacuum breaker system. So if you remember at the front of the truck, we had that vacuum breaker button. I explained how if you vacuumed up a rock at full vacuum, lifted it up out of the hole, hit your vacuum breaker button, that rock can fall off, and then we can go right back over the hole, press vacuum breaker, and get full vacuum again. So it's gonna automatically open that valve to allow air to pass through it, or seal that air off at full vacuum, and you can control that at the front of the truck. Well, another important piece to that is automatic overfill protection. This arrow has a limit switch tied into it. This is important for when you get this debris tank completely full. We don't want to overfill this debris tank or carry over any material into our vacuum system. So this is an external float ball system. Yes, we have a float ball inside the tank, but we're not depending on that float ball to create a seal in the tank. That float ball is connected to this arrow. This arrow is going to rise with the debris level, and once it reaches the top level of the debris tank, it's going to hit the limit switch to tell our vacuum breakers to close. That way we can't overfill any material. When we look at our dot on the side of the truck, we have a lower dot and a higher dot. that lower dot is going to be a 3/4 full, and the top dot is completely full. So as soon as you reach 3/4, this arrow is going to start bouncing. But remember, this is not our only place that we can see the debris level. We also have sonar in the debris tank, so you can read a digital debris tank level gauge at that operator station. So here's our fill hose where we would connect to a hydrant or anywhere where we're filling up with water. And this truck has 2 strainers. So we have a strainer that's pre-pump. That comes standard with any Vac-Con combo and Hydrovac. But they've also added a Y-type strainer here. So they're straining the water before it reaches the water tanks and before it reaches the water pump. So they're straining twice on the truck. Now we get a really good look at the back door. So this is our flat style door and splash shield. So you have 4 wedge locks that lock the door into place. You have 2 cylinders up top that are controlling the door hydraulically. So the really nice thing about this door system is these cylinders are riding an oval-shaped receiver. So what does that do for an operator, for anyone dumping the truck? Well, the first thing when you open this door, your 4 wedge locks are going to open, and then those cylinders take control of the door. But it cracks that door open slightly first, and it allows you to feather the opening of that door, so where you don't have to let the floodgates go automatically. You can feather it out and let that liquid run through that splash shield. So after that crack happens, then you can take full control and open the door as much as you want, but we give you the ability to feather that door through the first few inches of opening the door itself to give you more control. We also have our 6-inch knife lock here for decanting. So when you decant this door, it does look really high up on the door. But keep in mind, you're going to be tilting this tank up when you want to fully decant. So even though this is located in a higher position, you can always change that. But the lower the decant sits on the door, the more likely you are to get clogs, which brings me to a good point. This has a low pressure fitting on the knife valve. So if they did encounter a situation where they got a clog, they can take their low pressure hose, connect it to this fitting and open the ball valve and back flush the decant valve to open that up and allow for more liquid to come out. If we were to tilt this tank up in the air, the only place is that bottom corner is the only place that wouldn't get decanted, and we hope that there's going to be material there. But if we put this any lower, it's going to clog much more quickly. Above that decant valve, we can see we have our camera up top, which is our backup camera. Anytime we go in reverse, it's going to show us anything behind us. And we've got our arrow stick. So they elected to go with the arrow stick. It's a little bit smaller than the arrow board with the full arrow system, but it still can do the flashing system, the left or the right, and be a full-on traffic advisor for you. We also have 2 J-hook style pipe racks off the back. So you can tilt this debris tank up in the air and put those pipes onto that J-hook. They're mainly going to use this for their extra pipe. They're going to use most of their pipe off that Lazy Susan, but they can add extra pipes here if they encounter a very long lift that they need to make, or if they're digging a deep hole. We also have rear mounted tow hooks off the bumper of this truck. So you've got your bumper lower, and then attached to the chassis frame itself, you have 2 D loops for rear mounted tow hooks. On the driver's side of the debris tank, up top here, you can see that porthole. Now, a lot of guys go with inspection ports, but this is actually the location that we put our transducer for sonar in the debris tank. So that's what's giving you that readout at the ProReal display for your digital debris tank level. So now we get a good look at the vacuum system of the truck. This is our Vac-Con 3-stage fan that's made in-house here in Florida. We've been producing our fan vacuum system since the inception of Vac-Con, and this is something we really cut our teeth on. We really believe in the fan vacuum system, and for most work around the country, anything vertically, the fan is going to be the king. So we're able to create a lot of CFM with this system, and this customer knows it. We went out and did a demo with them, and they were impressed by the fan. That's why they went with it on their truck. Now, with a fan vacuum system, we don't need to do oil changes on the vacuum system itself. Instead, we just grease it every 8 hours. So we've got a grease port on the side here, and we've got 2 grease ports on this side for a total of 3 grease circs for the fan vacuum system. But this customer also went with remote greasing. So we have another grease block right off the side in a convenient location. That way they know that they're greasing everything remotely on the driver's side of the truck that's not already ground level. So On this grease zerk, they've got their boom turret, their boom, their debris tank, and their debris tank lift cylinder, all taken care of by one manifold of grease zerks off to the side, right next to their fan grease zerks. Another really important piece of any of the hydraulic system or the transfer case drive system that we're using on the truck is cooling. So we run air-cooled hydraulics on any of our combo trucks and Hydrovac. So we have a big cooling fan hung in the middle of the truck that's intaking air, and that's going to cool the hydraulic system. But we also have a smaller fan that's completely dedicated for our transfer case cooling. So we have two separate fans, one just for the hydraulic system and one just for the transfer case system. At this 6-bolt panel, we're housing all of our Vac-Con electronics, so it's easy to access from ground level. You can just take this panel off. It is watertight, and you can reach your motherboard, your PDM or your power displacement module, and your wireless remote receiver all from behind this panel in an easy access location. Another thing that's nice is down here you can see we do a remote sight glass for your OMSI transfer case. So you do have a sight glass on the transfer case itself if you wanted to get underneath the truck, but for pre-trip inspections and you're checking the truck out on your inspection before you go out and run everything, you can easily see the sight glass for your oil level on the transfer case right here from the driver's side, right next to the chassis door. Thanks for tuning in and taking a close look at this SE9 combo truck from Vac-Con. If you have any detailed questions at all, feel free to reach out. If you want to see a truck up close in person, go ahead and reach out to me and we can set up something with a local dealership. That way you can get your hands on and really find out this truck is a workhorse. As always, work safe and buy Vac-Con.